But now let's shift focus to the big political story tonight, something that has all of India extremely anxious. In the run-up to this election, are we going to see the return of the communal divide? Riots in Muzaffarnagar have wrenched open fault lines that obviously existed but have been exploited by a combination of insidious divisive politics and a lax state government that has just either not been able to intervene or has deliberately turned a blind eye. My colleague Srinivasan Jain is in Muzaffarnagar. Let's go across live to him now. Vasu, of course, in your reports, you've been looking at the emerging refugee crisis. We have now villagers who do not feel safe in their own villages. They're fleeing those villages. They're being taken to areas like local police stations. But those police stations don't even have the infrastructure or the wherewithal for these people to be able to live for an extended stretch. Curfew continues to be in place. Is there any thought in the state administration as to how to deal with this emerging and perhaps expanding crisis?
Well, clearly not. And we've seen this now, right, for these past 48 hours. There's been two convulsive days of violence here. The first on Saturday, which was immediately after a Jat Mahapanchayat. How on earth did the state government allow something like that, a gathering like that, to take place when already the communal environment in Muzaffarnagar was so charged is a question that they've still not been able to answer, even though it was posed directly to Akhilesh Yadav today. Now, the day after that, you have a retaliation by the majority community. And again, there is no anticipation of that. And that's why now you have a death toll which has hit 30 and is likely to rise even further. And now, as you mentioned, you have a situation that we saw on the ground, and we'll just play that report for you very shortly, where you've had the riots and now you have the refugees. You've had villages entirely cleaned out of Muslims in these Jat-dominated pockets, which we visited earlier today. They're packed into these makeshift refugee camps, some of them with the help of the administration, which is a very strange thing. They're actually helping them to evacuate, and some on their own. Now, they claim that all of this was happening without any sort of police supervision. They're feeling extremely threatened, even in these little islands, because they're largely surrounded by these Jat-dominated villages. And to our mind, talking to some of the officials here, I don't think they have any idea of how to tackle this. Their homes are burnt, and so going back to neighbors who they claim attacked them is going to be a very, very big and difficult challenge.
Let's just take a look at that report, Vasu, and then I'll come back to you to talk a little bit briefly about the politics of polarization. But let's just take a look at that ground report on the emerging refugee crisis now in Muzaffarnagar.
In the village of Loi, the fear and grief so raw that there is no scope for words. Loi has become a refugee camp of sorts for thousands of Muslims fleeing the latest wave of violence.
We are in Loi village, which is about an hour and a half outside Muzaffarnagar town, and these are all people who've come in hundreds, perhaps even thousands, from a number of nearby villages where the maximum amount of violence has taken place. आप कहाँ से खरड़ से आए? अच्छा, कितने लोग हैं यहाँ पे अभी?
2000 लोग के करीब हैं जी.
They have come from Fugana, Kharad, Lak, all Jat-dominated villages where Muslims are in a minority. Loi is Muslim majority. They claim the Jats, who were their neighbors, turned on them.
कितने बजे हमला हुआ?
हमला हमारे पास हो लिया 10 साढ़े 10 बजे, 10 और 11 के बीच में. मेरा भाई का गंडास लड़ा है, छोटे भाई का.
हाँ, प्रधान ने उजड़वाए. जो प्रधान चाहता तो हम नहीं रहते. प्रधान ने उजड़वाए. भूखे पिसाए किसी तनाई में हम रात 12 बजे यहाँ लोई में बड़े जंगलों में गिरते पड़ते बचते करते.
Thousands are already here, more on their way.
There are trucks arriving with people almost every hour. These are the latest batch of those who have fled from a village called Kheda Mastan, not far from here. As you can see, they've literally put their belongings on their heads and they've come to the village of Loi where they feel they can get sanctuary.
They say the state government, ironically seen as a protector of minorities, did nothing then or now.
5 बजे तक भी हमें कोई मदद नहीं मिली।
अखिलेश ने ये बिल्कुल मोदी रूप धारण किया जैसे गुजरात में हुआ था। मुलायम सिंह सरकार से कुछ नहीं हुआ और सब मुसलमान कटवा के डाल
कुछ नहीं, हमारे कुछ नहीं, खाने कोई बंद नहीं है। अभी हमारे 24 घंटे हो गए, हमने अब तक कुछ नहीं खाया 24 घंटे से।
At Fugana village, one of the worst hit, the violence so fresh that the flames are still smoldering. Homes abandoned, lives, belongings destroyed. This is all that's left of the homes in Fugana village, completely burnt to the ground. A violence which is so recent that you can still see the flames burning even now. And this house completely gutted, just like so many other houses in the Muslim enclave, the Muslim part of Fugana. The Jats of Fugana insist they had no hand in the violence, claiming bizarrely it was the work of outsiders.
तो बताइए, यहाँ पे जो मुसलमान हैं वो कह रहे हैं कि उन पे बहुत बुरी तरह हमला हुआ और वो सब उनको जान से एकदम बचा के भागे। वो तो क्यों हुआ ये हमला?
ये जो बाहर झगड़ा हुआ वहाँ पंचायत पे, उसके आक्रोश में बाहरी तत्व आए और उन्होंने यहाँ झगड़ा किया।
बाहरी तत्व आए मतलब गांव के लोगों ने उन पे अटैक नहीं किया?
नहीं, गांव के लोगों ने
नहीं, लेकिन जिनको अभी भी मिले वो कह रहे थे कि गांव के लोगों ने अटैक किया, किसी ने हमें बचाया नहीं।
गांव के लोगों ने किसी ने नहीं करा, बाहरी तत्व ने करा, गांव के आदमी ने किसी ने नहीं करा।
तो जो बाहरी तत्व हैं वो कैसे आए? मतलब आपने देखा उनको, कौन थे, कैसे थे?
अंधेरे में कई देखते उनका, अंधेरे में कैसे देख लेते उन्हें, कुछ पता नहीं लगा। इक्कू के मौको आए, रीख मौको करके चले गए।
बट ऐसे हो सकता है कि बाहर से लोग गांव में आ जाएं, कैसे आपको
अंदर तो नहीं गए, अंदर नहीं गए।
No one from Fugana has been arrested. At the local Thana, the SHO says he knows nothing. He has only been on the job for 25 minutes. Criminal action as yet unpunished and criminal failure by the UP government. This is the result. With Neha Masi and camera person Xavier, Srinivasan Jain in Loi village in Muzaffarnagar for NDTV.
And Vasu, to speak briefly about the governor's report that indicts that complete lapse or criminal lapse by the UP government, what are the details we have about the governor's report that squarely lays the blame at Akhilesh Yadav's government's door?
I think much of that report focuses on the state government's inability to anticipate the communal build-up, right from the first incidents that happened on August the 27th, which was actually a skirmish between two communities in a village not far from here, building up to the Mahapanchayat on the 7th. There were a series of incidents prior to that where leaders of both communities held highly inflammatory meetings, and I think it squarely nails the government for not being able to stop that Mahapanchayat from happening. Bizarrely enough, the officials we've spoken to here, and now the line being taken by senior Samajwadi Party leaders, is that they felt that if they had actually not allowed the Mahapanchayat, it would have led to further violence. But in the light of everything that's happened, and in fact just on the basis of just common sense, that's not an argument that's really going to cut any ice.
Srinivasan Jain, thanks for updating us on the buck stops here. Let's take you now to our big debate tonight. Who's responsible for this politics of polarization? Where does the buck stop for the kind of carnage that we are seeing unfold in Uttar Pradesh? The human tragedy, of course, but our politicians, in a sense, playing with the lives of innocent people. We are going to begin this discussion with our special panel tonight. To start with, we have Abhishek Singhvi of the Congress Party joining us, as well as Ravi Shankar Prasad of the BJP. Ravi Shankar Prasad was, of course, to lead a fact-finding inquiry panel to the area, but no politicians are being allowed. All politicians across parties have been detained. In a minute, we'll also be joined by Jayant Chaudhary, and Jayant Chaudhary's party has, of course, demanded President's rule along with the BJP and several other opposition parties. Ravi Shankar Prasad, let me start with asking you that while there are many questions being raised about the criminal lapses by the UP government, by the controversial decision of Akhilesh Yadav to actually allow that Mahapanchayat, at that Mahapanchayat there were leaders from many different parties, the BKU, the BJP, and even leaders associated with the Congress party. Many of them are said to have made inflammatory speeches that actually provoked the last spate of violence. you know that 4 BJP MLAs have been booked. So while we focus on the lapses of the UP government, and of course that's fair and square, what about the allegations that have been made against 4 of the BJP legislators?
You have asked a lot of questions. Give me some time to reply. First of all, I condemn this whole communal violence happening in Muzaffarnagar and around area. I appeal for peace, calm and sanity and also amity. Secondly, Barkha, I must flag one issue very clearly. I have been seeing Srinivasan Jain report since the afternoon, taking about communities, showing houses burning, going to villages of minority community. I would feel that there is a need for restraint. How far your report on TV is following that standard, I leave it to your judgment. Left to myself, there is certainly a need for restraint in showing images which may provoke. Now, as far as this whole issue is concerned, you are only insisting for Maha Panchayat. I will go a little earlier. When on 27 August, Raksha Bandhan Day, that unfortunate incident happened, 1 minority young man was killed, 2 Jat young men were brutally assaulted and mercilessly killed. There were 12 named accused. Why no one was arrested? On the contrary, the father of the slain boys themselves were made an accused.